Highly driven people burn out in a pattern that is almost predictable. If you are someone who withdraws or gets exhausted after accomplishments or after pushing toward your goals, in this video I'll show you what's exactly exhausting you. Specifically, it's about learning to dose your intensity. The pattern usually looks like this: inspiration, intense production, momentum, over-engagement, and then suddenly collapse. Withdrawal, doubt, change of direction. And then this cycle starts again, not because they're weak, but because the nervous system can generate more intensity that it has learned to regulate. Once you understand that pattern and what to do about it, burnout suddenly makes a lot of sense. And if this feels familiar to you, there is a good chance that you are what I call a highly driven person. When I say highly driven people, I don't mean anything elitist. I am describing a specific type of nervous system profile. People with this profile often notice that they can work long hours and still think clearly. They get energy from meaning and progress. They see patterns quickly. They hold multiple projects in their minds at once. They have strong internal drive, even without external pressure. And interestingly, they are often more exhausted by stagnation than by work. So the challenge is not ambition. It is intensity combined with drive. And that combination has a shadow. If you are new here, my work focuses on nervous system capacity, inner identity stabilization, and sustainable expansion. That is the lens I am speaking from on this channel. And when you look at highly driven people through that lens, a lot of things suddenly start making more sense. I'm not sure actually that I saw myself as a highly driven person 2 years ago, because I started something, I collapsed. I started it again, I collapsed. There was a very big, intense pain. I felt I could not walk toward my goals, toward my vision, that I knew that was mine to get out there. I knew it was mine to accomplish. I could not do it because of this collapsing circle. You may be, and if I saw this video when I was at my lowest, almost depressed of this not being able to rise again, I would not have seen myself as a highly driven person. So be aware that if you have vision, you know that you are meant for something bigger, and you feel it deep inside, then you can see yourself as a highly driven person. Then I'm speaking to you. Highly driven people often overload themselves without noticing. They confuse calm with loss of momentum. They struggle to truly rest without optimizing something. And over time, they can be slightly addicted to progress. So their pattern often looks like this: inspiration, direction, intense production, over engagement, and then collapse. Not because they are incapable, but because the nervous system has been running in micro-activation for too long. And most people misdiagnose this completely. They think the solution is discipline. But highly driven people already have discipline. That is not the missing piece. The real challenge for highly driven people is not vision. It is restitution. Rest is actually harder for them than action, because action gives direction, dopamine, proof of progress, identity. But a full day of rest gives space, silence, no evidence of movement, no measurable results. And a system that has learned always to be in progress can interpret that as danger. So instead of resting, it tweaks, it improves, it optimizes, adjusts, measures. But the thing that keeps the nervous system activated is not creativity. It is the optimization loop. Many highly driven people think their problem is intensity, but it usually isn't. It is endless improvement. There is always something that could be better, a smarter strategy, a better system, a better piece of content, a more optimized process. And because optimization never ends, the nervous system never fully exits activation. This is why many highly driven people don't burn out from work. They burn out from infinite refinement. At some point, I started experimenting with something very simple in my own work. I realized the problem was not the amount of work. It was the constant improvement loop. That subtle pressure of thinking, this could be better. I could improve this. Maybe there's a smarter way. And because that loop never ends, the nervous system never truly powers down. So I introduced a very simple structure. I only optimize 1 week per month. The other 3 weeks, I simply produce. I create the video, I publish the video, I turn it into shorts. If I noticed something that could be improved, I write it down on a list. But I don't immediately fix it. Everything goes into the list. And then in my optimization week, I open that list and do all the improvements in that 1 week. What that does for a highly driven nervous system, it's very important. It creates containment. 3 weeks where the system can create without constantly asking, how could this be better? And 1 contained week where improvements is allowed. So the nervous system finally gets something it rarely gets, rhythm. Because highly driven people usually don't burn out from work. They burn out from never-ending improvement. So if you see yourself in this, you don't need more ambition. You need better regulation of your intensity. You need rhythm, cycles, containment. That means learning things like self-limitation, planned restitution, holding intensity slightly lower than you technically could, letting things mature slowly. Ironically, this is often much harder than working hard. But when highly driven people reduce their intensity slightly, something interesting happens. Their energy becomes calmer, deeper, more stable. They become less on the way somewhere and more already arrived. And that is often the energy people describe as magnetism. Many people interpret this as a worthiness issue or a confidence issue, but very often it is simpler than that. It is a capacity management issue. Nothing is wrong. The system simply needs a different dosage. Instead of asking, how do I push more? The real question becomes, how do I hold my capacity without constantly using all of it? That is containment, and it is one of the most important skills to learn for highly driven people. This is also why this channel exists. Most personal development focuses on improving performance, but performance is rarely the real issue for highly driven people. But there is something that is more important than that. The real work is building the kind of nervous system stability that allows you to sustain a bigger life that you want without constantly collapsing, without burning through your own energy, without needing intensity to feel alive. That is what I talk about here. Nervous system capacity, containment, and sustainable expansion. And if you recognize yourself in this profile, if you are someone with strong drive and strong vision, but your system sometimes, maybe often, collapses, and maybe you are depressed because of that, because you think that something is wrong with you and you cannot pull yourself back up again, so your system collapses under your own intensity, I created something simple for you. It's called 7 Capacity Builders. It's a free guide with 7 small practices designed to help your nervous system slowly expand its capacity. Not through pushing, but through regulation and repetition. You can find the link in the description. Highly driven people do not burn out because they are weak. They burn out because the system has never learned how to dose their own intensity. And once that changes, your drive stops being something that exhausts you. It becomes something you can actually live inside. I'll see you in the next video.